Hello, hello, and welcome to yet the last exciting episode of Skeptics and Seekers Season 3. Welcome, everybody, and we are concluding the show with our final thoughts on Satan, God of this world. Last week, we had Christians come together and talk about their thoughts. I want to thank everyone who came, Mac Attack, Dale, David Russell. Thanks for coming in and standing your ground. We are going to begin this show by quoting some of what they said, and we'll have some discussion of that. And we're gonna do this via audio clip. First of all, let's just introduce the panel for today. We've got Darren. How you doing, Darren? Excellent. Okay.
Doing good.
There you go. Andrew, how you doing?
Yo, hello. Good to be here.
Brian with a Y?
David, thanks for having me as always.
Every time. And of course, last and least, not least.
No, definitely
Matthew.
Least. Good day, sir. How are you?
Yes, the first will be last and the last first and all that stuff. I'm sure that something like that.
I don't believe you, but thank you for having me.
We wouldn't have started the show without you. That's a lie.
Yeah, of course it's a lie. Everybody knows that's a lie. Come on.
Let's see. I realize that my video is not on right now, and I don't want to leave.
Choose virtual background. Choose.
I don't
hide
want
non-video
to
part.
leave.
Choose start video.
Start video. There we go. There we go. Hi. Yeah, it's me. No eye patch, no hair.
I was just about to say digging the hairstyle.
I just told him a little off the top. So we're going to start with that audio clip. For those of you who do not remember the show or remember some very specific things. So this audio clip, it'll last about 7 minutes thereabouts, but I think it's important to get the whole thing in context. And then we're going to do a little bit of round robin and talk about it. So everybody ready? Here we go. Like, here we go.
Last week on Skeptics and Seekers.
Satan goes by various names in the Bible: Beelzebub or Beelzebul, the devil. Satan is also called the god of this world, or the ruler of this world from heaven, that rebelled against God and sinned against him. Some of them were imprisoned in hell. Others were let loose upon the earth to basically attack God's plan. Some people say Satan himself, his domain was the world or the entire universe itself. God delegated that to Satan. Satan and his demons also seek to destroy the servants of God in various ways, spiritually as well as even physically.
My purpose is to present the biblical view of who Satan is described to be. He is a supernatural being. He is not local. He's called the deceiver of the whole world. He's not just constrained or restricted to one geographical area. He's a murderer. Psalm 103:19, it says, the Lord has established his throne in heaven and his kingdom rules over all. So there is no ambiguity about who rules everything. It's the most high God. God rules the universe. This is Satan, right? And he's a disembodied. Ontologically, he's a fallen angel. And among those are other fallen angels, evil spirits, right? So they're all in the same category in terms of who they are.
I believe the Bible's story about the origin of Satan, the work of Satan and demons. What is it they do? They blind unbelievers. They seek to nullify the preaching and advancement of the kingdom. The final category of demonic possession evidence is taking 5 categories of evidence from Dr. Ian Stevenson, who's probably the world's expert on evidence for reincarnation in Hinduism and that sort of thing. And I think that his categories of evidence are best explained by positing demon possession rather than reincarnation.
He is powerful than any human power. He's an accuser. He's like a roaring lion. He goes around looking for someone to devour. He entered Judas and caused him to go sell out Jesus.
He is a person. Jesus talks about seeing him fall from like lightning from the heavens, you know.
Jude 6, where it talks about God, the angels rebelling and sinning against God, and then he locks them up down into the bowels of the earth or into hell. First John 3:8 that says, Satan sinned from the beginning. He was an angel who sinned and fell with them. Sin from the beginning implies a temporal thing. It's not that he was created sinful, saying he was created perfect. He was like every other angel. He was had his dominion and that sort of thing. And he rebelled. You know for a fact, scripturally, that it was before the creation and fall of human beings.
When I said that I was going to talk about the biblical view, I wasn't saying that my view is the only view. Daniel 4:17, it says the Most High rules the kingdom of men and gives it to whom he wills.
Is Satan a god?
This is where you have to get technical a little bit so that people don't get confused. It just means it's Elohim and it means a disembodied spirit. So any disembodied spirit in the Bible is always, like, they call it a god.
So you're saying that because the vocabulary is limited, right?
Yeah.
That it's a figure of speech.
So like there's a spiritual aspect to it where it can be like a disembodied spirit is seen as God when it really isn't.
The people having near-death disembodied experiences are gods in the way that Paul meant it here.
Disembodied spirits are called gods in some way too. Is he a prince? Is he a ruler? Is he a god? The answer to all of that is yes. So our job is to figure out what they meant and how they understood it, not how I would understand it.
So you think that Satan is an actual literal disembodied spirit, right?
He's supernatural. Yeah. Anything that's ruling derives its authority from the Most High God.
God delegated it to him. I see it more as like a usurped authority. He's perverted God's order. And
Who did he usurp it from?
God. Once he fell and sin, once the fall happened and sin entered into the world, creation itself was put into bondage to Satan. He has control through his demonic power and satanic powers to control the world. God is obviously permitting this usurpation to happen for his own divine purposes. It's not like Satan was literally stronger than God and took it against God's will. Demonic spirits impersonate these gods and use it for satanic ends. And
people would have been tempted to worship like an evil spirit, like that demanded you to sacrifice your child. Satan is in heaven, everything is perfect, and he rebels. Does any Christian know for sure why Satan sinned? The answer to that is no.
Satan was oriented, Lucifer's not his proper name, but Satan was oriented towards God and goodness and moral goodness and everything like that. It's impossible for there not to be this temptation or for crazy. If you have free will creatures, that's necessarily entailed. After all the angels made their free will choice, all of them had libertarian free will, the ones that stayed in heaven and the ones that fell. After that, their souls were crystallized or sealed in the state that they freely chose.
When we get to heaven, it's not just going to be one activity like how atheists say it's going to be. It's going to be boring or anything. It's going to involve more things about reality itself that God has prepared that no mind right now can conceive of.
But yeah, I don't think he has. I think some people inflate his power. I don't think he does communicate with me. When we're talking about possession to the unbeliever, I think that could be a possible way, a possible power, so to speak, is being able to control someone's body.
What are Satan's powers?
2 Corinthians 4:4, he is blinding the minds of the unbelievers to keep them from seeing the light of the glory of Christ. Satan can influence that by making your desire for something else that is contrary to what is good. So like he can like set up circumstances in terms of like I'm not saying I don't know how he does this, but like set up desires like temptations in your path that you will fall for. The way that's common to my experience is that go turn on the television and see violence and see all sorts of pornographic content.
Where do we see Satan's hand in anything? I need you to workflow how the devil from where he is to where I am gets me to do anything or
Go ahead.
influences me in any way.
Like the answer that I give you is not going to be satisfactory, but I'm still going to give it anyway. All right. So like you have Satan, he's in the spiritual realm, and we have us here. So like in the spiritual realm, there are things going on there. And
We don't know fully how it relates in every aspect of our life, right?
Can Satan possess people today?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, we got 2 yeses. Okay.
the spiritual realm has to do with things that pertain to like what we as humans spiritually crave. Like just like I would say that this pertains more to believers as opposed to someone who is not a Christian. So like when Paul talks about spiritual warfare, he is addressing it to Christians.
If there was nobody influencing us from the other side, would we have possibly made better choices? Would we have done better?
I would have to still say no. God had a purpose in sending his son. He wanted to demonstrate something about his character.
Even though there were sinful beings that rebelled against God and fell and that sort of thing, there wasn't a war at that point. There was nothing to fight over because God had already dealt with us. So yeah, the war began with human beings with the fall. The world that we have where Satan and demons exist is overall better than a world that didn't have Satan and demons in it in terms of the overall value of the world, else God wouldn't have created.
As the temple, abnormality impermanent, and now, skeptics and seekers.
Okay. Let me say a couple of things just by way of introduction to the conversation. And I've heard this clip before, but it's a lot to take in. So first thing is any audio issues or distortion issues, completely accidental and not intentional at all. Also, some of the cuts might sound rough and forced, but this is not an attempt to take things out of context. In fact, we wanted to make a particularly longer clip to include more of the context, and the real context is the entire show that was done last week. And so if you worry that something has been taken out of context, you can listen to the show. It's up there. It's on the internet. It's not coming down anytime soon. So give it a listen. And finally, before we jump into this discussion, it's important to say that this is not an attempt to mock or belittle any of the people on the Christian panel. They're fine people, and they did a good job in presenting their material. That said, I am a polemicist, and I do believe in ridiculing the ridiculous. It's important that we are able to separate ridiculing people and ridiculing ideas. And so I don't find any of the people worthy of ridicule or scorn. I wouldn't have them on the show if I did. That said, we're going to have a fairly gloves off approach for the rest of the show about the ideas presented. And so with that, I'm going to go ahead and throw it to Andrew for the first bite, because I know that you had a thought or two, and so I'm going to let you get yours in before everyone else jumps on it, because you're probably not the only one who had the idea that you had. So take it away.
Okay, let me echo first that I created that clip, and the reason that there was audio distortion is a mistake that I made last night. in the final hours of putting this together. And so my apologies. I simply didn't have time to correct the problem. David's absolutely right. There's no attempt as a result of the audio artifacts to poke fun or ridicule or in any way diminish or belittle the people that were used in the clip. So thanks to all of the Christians. I consider most of you friends, and there it is. That said, I want to start perhaps with something that other people won't start with, so that maybe we can all pick different parts of the clip. I thought it very interesting that that Dale suggested that we are both in bondage to Satan. Satan has been given this world as his plaything, and yet Satan is also a usurper. And I just want to ask, does it sound like a reasonable, I don't even care if you call him good, does it sound like a reasonable God who puts what is currently close to 7.5 billion people, or maybe we're pushing 8, I'm not sure. Does it sound even reasonable for an all-powerful God to place all of us in subjection to a usurper?
Okay, well, that was actually my first choice. So don't worry, I have another one in my back pocket.
Apologies.
You're not sorry. So the thing is, God is bad at personnel. Human resources in heaven sucks, because even if you say, well, Satan before he fell, he was a good guy. Human resources delegated the entire universe to Satan, and they didn't do a very good background check to see if he might be psycho. See if things might go wrong if we put this much power in this guy's hand. And I don't even know what it means that God would have put the care of the universe in Satan's hand before he sinned anyway. Because if the Christian idea is true, we are the only people in the universe. So the only interesting part of the universe to be in charge of is the human sector. And apparently Satan had already fallen by the time the human sector was created. And so what does it even mean that Satan would have been given charge of the universe before he sinned? That's not possible. The timetable doesn't work. But even if you make it work in your head canon, are you freaking kidding me? A background check, a $35 background check could have dealt with all of this. So sorry, not sorry. It's gonna be that kind of show. I'm sorry. Matthew, Darren, Brian, just someone save me from myself, because
well, I listened to sorry, excuse me, hang on a minute, wet my throat. Advertisement.
Look,
Hobgoblin beer. Yep. Yes, I listened to the Christian show, and my impression coming away from it was that the whole devil Satan character is completely incoherent. There isn't as a literary device, the whole character of Satan feels like an afterthought. It reads like an afterthought. It's not cohesive. It doesn't work very well with the story. There are far too many holes in the plot to plug in Satan to make the story. In fact, true to his name, the whole devil character completely destroys the entire story, because it introduces far too many problematic scenarios. And listening to the Christian show, just didn't help me at all getting a picture of. I heard various conflicting ideas and suggestions come out. There wasn't a single narrative from any of the Christians that matched the other. Stick to talking about God, Christians. You've got it nailed much better. You've still got problems, but just ignore Satan and just talk about God. Your whole story will work an awful lot better. But that said, you need the devil, and the devil really is a child's fear-mongering character. It is literally the boogeyman in the closet used to control a child that's been blown out of all proportion and create into this something that adults now need to fear. And it simply doesn't work. There is just nothing in it. And the bit that really killed it for me, and this is the bit that I really took away from it, and this is something that taps into my whole deconstruction story, that is this whole stupid idea of free will, because it is a ridiculous idea. But Satan and free will simply do not work. We heard on the Christian show how Satan misguides people. He intentionally gives people wrong ideas. He intentionally distracts people. He intentionally takes people away from God by giving them lies and misdirections so that they are led into, forced even, if you will, to believing and doing completely the wrong thing. So I personally have been told by Christians, not on the Christian show, not by Christians on the Christian show, but by Christians on Facebook, on other social media sites, on blogs, whatever. But it's been told many times that one of the reasons why I don't believe is because Satan has got into me and has given me wrong ideas and has misguided me and has led me astray, and that God is trying to call me back, but Satan is distracting me and has got me into the wrong train of thought. Okay, fair enough. Let's assume for a moment that that's true. It's bullshit, obviously, but let's assume for a moment that is true. Who is responsible for punishing me for being misdirected? The holy God, the God that loves me, the God that is supposedly my perfect parent. And what's he going to, and what is my treatment for being unintentionally misguided, for being outside of my free will, led down the wrong path? And so my reasons for believing the wrong things are because I've been misled, because some other entity that I have no power over has given me the wrong ideas, has intentionally led me down to believing the wrong thing. And because I've been intentionally led down the wrong thing by some evil entity, the holy God is going to punish me for that, as though it's my fault, because it's my free will to be led down the wrong path by some character that is intentionally leading me away. What part of that makes any sense at all? The whole thing is utterly, utterly incoherent. And that is the bit that took me away. And that bit alone, as far as I'm concerned, is enough to scoffen the entire idea of Christianity, not just the devil. That's me out.
Okay. All right. That's cool. I see that that we're both going to need some therapy after this.
Stacks of it. But so I've got a glass of it here. Well, I'm good.
Darren?
Yeah, I got it. As coming from someone who's never been a Christian, really, the whole Christian mythology sort of strikes me as being a little incoherent as well. As Matthew pointed out, the whole idea of libertarian free will is, as far as I can tell, logically impossible on a basic logic level, and impossible under the Christian mythology, where you've got a connection to God making you do good things and a connection to the devil making you do evil things. But as far as Satan goes, it seems to me that Satan sort of gets a bad rap through all of this because he's still working for God. If you think about it, apparently he's helping God save as many souls as possible. It's sort of like when the Christians vilify Judas. Well, if Judas hadn't betrayed Jesus, then there would be no resurrection. So he had to do it. He was basically working for God, and and so the Christians want to vilify him for that, for doing his job. And it just seems to me that when you have an all-powerful God that is supposedly created all the rules, and you've got a world where Satan controls the physical part of it, you almost have to think that God actually wants it that way. So to actually vilify Satan as if he's some evil person when he's doing what God wants him to do just seems, I don't know, counterproductive, hypocritical. I don't know, choose your word. And then you also had the problem where if you look at Satan from the people that actually worship him, you get a completely different being. I mean, all of the descriptions of Satan are from the Christian perspective, but that's sort of like getting the what the Jewish people are like from the Nazis, you know. It seems to me that if you really want to know who Satan is, then you go to the people that are actually worshiping him. Those are my initial thoughts on the whole thing.
Ryan the Wise.
Those were all excellent points by all of the panelists. I would have picked any number of those to be my lead if I went first. But I will go to two things. One is the concept that all the Christians used for evidence for the existence of Satan. It was all 100% the Bible says so. You know, when David tried to push them into the real world, workflows and what have you as to how you can identify Satan acting in the world, they all bristled at the fact that you were actually asking for evidence that was testable in the real world. It made me think of a great analogy that Tracy Harris uses on the atheist experience, where she talks about there are supernatural gremlins that help to make her toaster work. And she says that, look, I put my toast in, I plug it in, I push the button, then the gremlin does his thing, and look, out comes my toast. There's no way to separate or to isolate or to identify the supernatural gremlin in the process of making toast. But you can identify all of the actual natural steps of plugging it in, pushing the button, watching the heating element heat up, that shows how the toast gets made. The gremlin is completely grafted on and is not necessary, not identifiable, not falsifiable. It's doing nothing in the explanation of how you make toast. That was how I felt about hearing what Satan does in the world. He's tempting us. He's putting obstacles in our way. He's changing our thoughts, or he's not changing our thoughts because he can't do that. None of these things require a Satan. I am perfectly possibly tempted by, a third beer, an attractive woman walking down the street, and a jet ski that I see, at the sporting goods store. I don't need Satan to be tempted by any of these things. Satan is just grafted on top of what we know works naturally in certain ways. So if you want to actually identify Satan in the world, you've got to isolate him, and you've got to show me where he is and what he's doing. And if you listened to what the Christians had to say about what powers he has and how he manifests, they actually disagreed quite a bit, and in fact didn't know in a number of ways how he worked. But they were all perfectly happy to say without hesitancy that he does exist and that he does act. And that disconnect, I think, is the large difference between how Christians are reasoning about evidence and how skeptics are reasoning about evidence.
Yeah, when you've got a smart panel and then you let them go first, you end up feeling like you've been mugged because all your stuff is gone. But that's okay. I've got one that I know that no one was going to pick. I had it since last week, actually, truth be told. I didn't comment on it overly much. Then I haven't talked about it on the board, just so I could spring it for this moment. So it was the part where I was asking, when did the spiritual war start? And I know that felt like an insignificant question at the time, and I allowed it to die as an insignificant question just to kind of put a marker in it for later. And now we have later, but the answer that all of them gave, and I kind of wonder if they all gave it because it's what they think, or if they all gave it because the first person said it. But the answer that they gave was that the spiritual war started when at the Garden of Eden. Now, this is an interesting idea, just theologically speaking. Let me have my one theological moment. That's not what I believed growing up. That's not what I believed at all. Now, we didn't talk a whole lot about spiritual war. We weren't those kinds of Christians, but my understanding all through growing up, and I never had a different understanding through the various denominations I tried, was that the spiritual war started before Satan's fall. It was the fall of Satan from grace itself that was the beginning of the war. So before I finish this thought, I just want to ask Andrew, who had a similar religious tradition for part of his time, how did you understand that? When did the spiritual war start? Was it just when humans did their thing, or was it when the fallen angels did their thing?
Okay. I'm going to answer just a moment of humor when you think about the passage where Jesus says he saw him falling from heaven, and David Russell said last week, he's a person. Jesus saw him falling from heaven like lightning. Is that what people do? Do they survive? Did he have a parachute? Was he waving his arms? It was a moment of laugh out loud for me, right? Satan falls from the heavens like lightning, and immediately preceding that, David Russell says he's a person. Okay. How did I see the spiritual war?
Yeah, when did it start?
Okay, so in my view, however long it started before the Garden of Eden, it started before the Garden of Eden.
Yep.
Why?
Okay.
Because the serpent, traditionally thought of as some sort of embodiment of Satan, right? The serpent represents evil. So either it started before the Garden of Eden, or God just didn't notice that this dude was wandering around wrecking things, before Genesis 3:15.
It has to be before the Garden of Eden, because they were cast out. It's like a third of the angels. There's a whole army that we're talking about. There was a rebellion, a failed coup attempt, but somehow that's not considered the spiritual war. I have no idea what they're talking about. But the thing that stuck in my mind was Dale's very specific explanation of why it couldn't have been that time that I'm referring to now. And it is because God threw Satan out of heaven, and in Dale's words, you could hear it in the clip, Satan had been dealt with. God dealt with him, took care of it. No war. And so Satan being left to corrupt this new creation is God taking care of it.
So I want to ask a question there. This you and I talked about this in front of the show, because we talked a lot last week about these things. It seems to me that the question that the Christian doesn't ask is at the moment that Satan is in heaven and he becomes covetous, right? And there's this acknowledgement in the Christian show that Satan's will is somehow weak at that moment, right? He's coveting whatever he's coveting, the pretty angel next to him, or God's throne, or whatever he's coveting. It doesn't really matter. So his will is weakened, and now he's coveting. Could God have propped him up right then? Could God have reached out as a loving God? Because he saw that Satan's will was weak in this moment for whatever reason. And and have propped Satan up, have simply rescued him from himself. And by rescuing Satan, have rescued all of us. But this conversation, I don't know exactly what path it's going to take from here. I've got some thoughts that may come up later.
Yeah, well, I think.
Go ahead, Darren.
Actually, before you go, Darren, I just want to close out my thought because I had a rentus interruptus there. My blood pressure was about to go up, and then you stopped me. I want my blood pressure up. I now I've got to work up the rage again. I don't have the moment. Look, what you're saying is a natural follow to the question, but it deserves some, at least a few moments of reflection, at the very least from Christians. God supposedly took care of the Satan problem before humans came on. Now that's what I understood Dale saying. That there was no spiritual war before humans because God already took care of Satan. He took care of it. Now, when a mob boss takes care of it, it's taken care of. You know, the guy is not coming back to fuck up your business. We got it. It's taken care of. You know, we know how to take care of a problem. God takes care of the little Satan problem, and Satan still manages to usurp control of the fucking universe. That's what it looks like when God took care of it. Come on, try harder. Message to Christians.
His
Try
ways
harder.
are mysterious, David.
Well-
Come on, you just don't get it.
Well, the problem is that you're assuming goals that Dale's theology doesn't actually assume. You're assuming that God is competent and capable and able to actually control his creation, whereas Dale's theology, that's not the God he's talking about. He's not talking about a competent God or anything. He's talking about a God that sole purpose is to save as many souls as possible. And in order to do that, he needs the devil to exist in the world. So when he took care of the devil and the devil took over the universe, in Dale's theology, that was the whole point, because God needed the devil in order to save as many souls as possible. And as screwed up as that sounds to anyone who's sane, that's how Dale's theology works. So when you criticize God for not being able to do these things, you're criticizing God's actual plan, which I think is probably fairly valid, because any plan that involves the devil and temptation and that kind of thing is kind of a shitty plan.
So let me throw it back to Andrew real quick. There's a natural follow-up to that, but I'll hold it. Brian, did you want to jump in before Daniel pushes forward with what God could have done about the Satan problem?
Yeah. I think Darren brings up a great point, which is at the end of the day, you need to know what the base goal is. And in listening to the show, it was striking to me how they would be worried about making a coherent story, but only a small c coherent story, like it wouldn't take other things into account. So once you start talking about God needing Satan and God couldn't save as many souls as possible without having a God of this world tormenting us for millennia or however long it's going to be, God loses his omnipotence at that point, right? He really can't save more souls without this evil being. So that means that God needs Satan. God is not perfect without Satan doing what he's supposed to do. And once you start going down these rabbit holes, they start changing the circle that they're making coherent. So if you look at the big picture, it's not coherent at all. But once you start pointing out these problems, you move on in the conversation to another thing, talking about how you can rescue omnipotence by saying this, that, and the other, when you don't even realize that you've just overturned what you just said 5 minutes ago about something else. And one place that this was entirely striking, and again, this is no personal attack on Dale. I always appreciate him coming on and saying what he says. But he was talking to you, David, on the show about how Satan usurped power from God Then 5 minutes later, he was on the chat telling me, no, he didn't usurp. He thought he did. So he tried to usurp, but failed, but then God gave him the power. So the point is the answer made sense in combating what you were saying, David, by saying that Satan usurped. But then when we talked about it for 5 more minutes on the chat, he realized that Satan being able to usurp anything from God is going to cause a problem for what he thinks about God. So he had to change his answer for what's happening in the chat. And now neither of these things meet, and these things don't get reconciled to each other.
So Andrew, as you, I know that you're about to say something, just incorporate the last words of that clip into what you were going to say. We had talked about that earlier. I gave you a round to bring it up, and I was going to bring it up myself, but I will give you a chance to talk about it. This was the part of the clip where Dell said that actually it's a universe without Satan would be a universe that saved fewer souls. And just as some perspective, Dale's argument is not purely numeric. So it's not saving the biggest number of souls. It's saving the biggest number of morally free agent souls. There's a little bit of a distinction and nuance there. But in his estimation, without Satan, it wouldn't be as good. The universe wouldn't be as good. As many free agent souls would not be saved. And this is his belief very explicitly. I'm not taking this out of context. So, I said in my closing statement, if I recall, look, if that's the God you have, and if that's the plan of God you have, and if that's the Satan you have, he can't do his best work without Satan. I honestly don't care why, because we're too far into the means justify the ends mentality. I don't want any part of that plan. I don't want any part of that God. I don't want any part of that story. It's like saying, well, we need the Holocaust to bring about this. Okay, well, I don't want any part of that. Whatever you think we need, that gets us. It's outside of my ethical umbrella to countenance. Andrew, go ahead.
So there's a thing that baffles me here, and it has for a long time in regard to saving as many souls as possible, right? There's some sort of strange reasoning here that says this all-powerful God, who does end up in the end with some amount of free will souls who are going to be in heaven, right? That's part of the story. Some people are going to make it, a whole bunch of people are not. So there are souls who will do enough of the right things to make it heaven. And this all-powerful God made those souls. Okay. But somehow he is not good enough, all-powerful enough, all-seeing enough to simply make as many of that kind of soul as he wants. So it's as if he lost his good soul recipe somewhere in the middle of making this universe cake. His soul printing machine is randomly broken. Makes some good souls, makes some bad souls, and God can't figure it out. And when I decided to walk away from Christianity, this was one of the big reasons. That just doesn't make sense to me. That God lost his soul-making recipe. Now he's got some good ones and he's got some bad ones. And so I can't see anyone where we can say the universe is better with Satan in it, that God wouldn't have done it if it wasn't better this way, when everything that I think of as reasonable simply says he's got two kinds of souls. He knows how to make those that will obey. He knows how to make those who won't obey. And he could have simply made one kind of them. And they'd have still been free will agents, because the ones that make it to heaven are free will agents. if he's not all powerful enough to make as many of that kind of soul as he wants, he's not the all powerful that I think Christians are saying.
So we've had some discussion about some of the stuff on the clip. I want to expand the discussion beyond that. You can get as personal as you like here, but I'd love to hear, because we've got mostly ex-gens on the board, and then we've got Darren, who's a never been. I want to know about your history with the Satan story.
Yeah, I'll jump in on this.
Yeah.
I don't know, my theology and my Christian belief meandered a little bit through my 20s, but I certainly landed on a point where for me, in my Christian faith, it was incoherent to think that the devil and demons didn't exist. So for God, there had to be the devil, Satan, and for angels, there had to be demons. There had to be the opposites. I just didn't see how it could work any other way. And I can't remember for the life of me how I got to that point, so don't try to ask me to explain it. But the point I really want to make is I ended up in a belief system where Christianity was true. Obviously, it was arrogantly the only religion worth believing, and every other religion was a bastardization as a result of Satan's or his demonic minions deceiving or misleading other people intentionally. Because why would people believe an incorrect thing about God if they hadn't been deceived by something? You know, that was the kind of literal, very simplistic Christianity that I had. And before listeners jump on me for having a very simple literalistic Christianity, I was not unique. There are plenty more like me still who have that kind of Christianity. It is far more popular than just me. You know, I wasn't a fad. And that meant that I believed genuinely that demons could do a miracle just like an angel could do a miracle. And any great act or any miraculous event that was assigned to any other religion was clearly something done by a demon, and therefore bad. And any miracle or any miraculous act that was done under the name of Christianity was obviously done by an angel, therefore good. And it really was that black and white. And there are a staggering number of Christians who hold to that kind of very simplistic thinking. And when you step back from it, where I am now, and look at it, it simply makes no sense whatsoever. So that's the kind of theology I had. But to go even further and to give you an example of where this kind of thinking goes, I have been on a Facebook group where Christians and atheists talk. And you know these television illusionists who do peculiar acts, and we all know that they're a trick, and we all know there's some mechanics in there that's helping them with their trick. Well, there's an English illusionist, I can't for the life of me remember what his name is, but he's done this YouTube video, and you can find it, where he goes around London connected to a London double-decker bus, and all he's got is one hand out holding the top of the bus, and he's just going round to touch this bus. And look, come on, we all know there's clearly a pole that's welded to the top of the bus, and it goes up his shirt sleeve, and he's down his suit, and he's standing on it. That, let's be honest, that's how the trick's done. You know, it's really simple, it's not difficult, but obviously it's all hidden in his clothes, and so it looks like he's literally riding the bus by holding it out with his hand. This Christian on this Facebook group literally believed he was doing it by the power of holding his hand. And he said on this group, it was demonic power that gave him that superhuman strength to do that trick. And he would not believe us when we told him it is just a trick with a mechanical device. He simply could not accept that fact. This guy sells himself as a magician, therefore he's got demonic power in it, and it's giving him this. This is where that line of thinking takes you, and it destroys your ability to logically comprehend things that people are patiently trying to explain you. And that is why I come on podcasts like this, and this is why I scoff and laugh and poke at the whole concept of Christianity, because it takes people to that place of utter insanity.
One might even say he was an utter nutter.
Yes.
So, yeah, by the way, you can look at YouTube videos that show you how the trick is done. I mean, it's not hard. It's out there. Every trick that you've ever wondered about, the internet is there to expose it if you want to see it. It doesn't actually make the illusion worse. I mean, I enjoy watching a good trickster do their thing, even if I know how it's done. Come on, people. It doesn't take the power of Satan or a god to do this stuff. Darren,
we get accused. Oh,
I'm sorry.
I was just one sentence. We get accused of being cynical about the Christian story, but what Matthew's talking about, it seems to me, is a Christian that has moved beyond skepticism to cynicism, because even the good explanation isn't good enough, right? He's moved right from well, there's this kind of deception that, he's got this pole, it's down his sleeve, and he's standing up there. Okay, fine. But he's being deceived about the deception. Right? And so that, to me, is where we leave the realm of skepticism. We're often accused of it. Leave the realm of skepticism and become cynics. But I think Matthew has given the perfect example.
Well, that's where the Christians were last week, though, because when I was trying to push them and show them, look, all of these things that you're saying that Satan does, humans can do to themselves. We don't need a Satan. So why do you think there's a Satan? And the only answer is divine revelation. It says so in this book that I believe. And so, you can look at all of the accidents of nature that might be the proximal cause of some of this stuff, but underneath the surface where you can't see, it's this other spiritual stuff going on. And once you start thinking that way, I don't know how to think your way out of it, because there's no logical proof, there is no evidence that one can give, because no matter what evidence one gives, you can shake your head and acknowledge that and say yes, and also demons, because it says so in this book.
Well, if a demon tells me that Satan is really the good person and God's the bad person?
Honestly, I would be more inclined to believe that, because the demon came and told me something, as opposed to God, who hasn't actually told me anything. Darren, so having not been a Christian, it's always interesting to hear from you on this stuff. What is your relationship to the Satan story? How long have you known about it? What has it fucked you up in some way? Do you have counseling 3 times a week? I'm just, inquiry minds want to know.
Yeah, Satan's one of those curiosities where if you don't believe in the good guy, you're probably not going to believe in his arch nemesis. I don't know, you hear about Satan when you're really young. Regardless, I mean, we're still 80-something% Christian. Sort of hard to get away from it. But for me, it's always been sort of academic. Because the whole Satan thing completely destroys the Christian mythology. When you add in Satan, it just completely tanks the whole thing. And I think the problem is that Christians, the God the Christians want to worship, there's no way that God would ever create the world we actually live in. So they have to have an excuse as to why the world we live in is the way it is, given the God they want to worship. And so they have to have a bad guy. The problem is that they sort of painted themselves into a corner by making God this all-powerful thing. So then you get apologists like William Lane Craig and a few of the others, where they start decreasing the power and competence of God in order to make it work. And so you've got this devil character that keeps getting more and more powerful, and over time, and then the God that keeps getting less and less powerful. I mean, it's the same problem that the people that wrote Superman have. You know, they make him too powerful, so then they have to either cripple him in some way, or they have to lower his power in order to be able to make good stories. And I think that's the same problem the Christians have with God and the devil.
Brian the Wise, when did you first encounter the devil?
So, I was a Christian when I was very young, and I would have believed in the literal character when I was young. I definitely believed, as the Bible talked about him, not too unsimilarly from how the Christians talked about him on the panel. I think as I got older as a Christian, I didn't reject the literal character, but it didn't matter. I believed in the metaphorical power of my own sin, of temptations, of me, being on the wrong path, exposing myself to things that moved me away from God. So if Satan turned out to be more metaphorical, that fit perfectly fine in kind of my more mature adult version of Christianity. But obviously, now that I'm out, looking back, clearly, the fact that it's completely unfalsifiable to determine whether Satan actually exists. So you can throw him in the bin of all the other claims that Christians make that are unifalsifiable and unisolatable when looking at the world to see if they actually exist.
So for my part, I was very young. So before I was 10, I was pretty active in the church. I was a bit of a freak, but I started having problems with this child's nightmare of a character when I started asking questions. And any question will do, because there are no good answers to any questions about Satan. And so it starts to come unraveled. I think the biggest question that I had is, why is there a war? How is Satan still here? He's contending with God, and he's still here. God didn't destroy him with the first blast. I mean, Satan punched God in the face, God punched Satan in the face, and they're still going at it. Is that possible? Does that make sense? That can't be right. That particular thought technology broke my brain as a kid, because I still had to try to believe in Satan. I still had to try to believe that God was all powerful and God was all loving, and he's not just pretending to have a war, and there really is some kind of spiritual war, some struggle between Satan. But how can there be? How can there be? So my thinking of the spiritual realm, are any of you guys, besides Andrew, familiar with a writer named Frank Peretti?
Mm-hmm. Oh, I love those books.
Yeah,
Genuinely loved reading those books.
Fantastic books. Forget the Left Behind series, guys.
Find those too.
And there goes my estimation of the Brit again.
I lost my faith halfway through reading the Left Behind series of books, and so by the time I actually got to the last book, I was going, "Oh, it really was. Do I have to read this? This is so awful." But I would be tempted to read the Frank Peretti books again. It's been a long time. I would be tempted to read them again.
I think I've read them all twice.
Anymore.
Yeah, they're and to be fair, I never gave the Left Behind series a fair chance. I mean, Tim LaHaye's a nut job, but that said, nut jobs can make good writers, and the Frank Peretti series. There's a name for this series. I don't remember what it is, but it
This
depicts
Present Darkness.
This Present Darkness. Yeah, it depicts an underworld, a layer of the universe that's kind of overlaid on our universe, but we can't see it. But it's the spiritual realm that's overlaid on the physical realm. And in that spiritual realm, if you could see it, you would see a lot of activity of angels and demons protecting people and trying to hurt people and doing battle with people. And this is this kind of overlay of the mystical world that I envisioned even before I encountered those books. Just reading biblical descriptions, reading Paul. This is the kind of thing that I thought was reality. So that's how I saw it. Well, obviously that's kind of cuckoo. Because it also dawned on me that there are people who we think of as crazy, and using that term very intentionally, because it's not a very nice term to think of people who are mentally ill in this way, but this is how we used to think of them and talk about them. They would see things and hear voices and that sort of thing. But actually, they were also just religious because that's how I saw the world too. I just thought that I was sane and they were crazy. And at some point I realized, you know what? My vision of what the universe is like, and that bag lady over there who keeps trying to bite her elbow, we're not different. Something is maybe wrong with that. And so I tried my best to kind of build a coherent Christianity that had some version of a devil, that had some version of a war, with some version of a God, where the war was still going on, and all of these things were happening in this overlay, this invisible overlay. And eventually my brain just broke. I couldn't honestly critique someone else's sanity while believing that way.
Yeah. One of my favorite scenes from the Frank Peretti books is, there's multiple bits that are quite good, but one of the scenes that really sticks out for me is where the main characters, I think it's the vicar or the pastor inside of the first or second book, are going somewhere, and the angels need to orchestrate this guy to meet one of the other lesser characters so that the plot goes on in an interesting way, in the way God wants it to be. So the way the angel does it is he throws his sword into the engine of the car to cause the car to break down. And looking back now, it's utterly hysterical. But at the time, as a Christian reading it, I thought it was just so awesome.
This is what we thought the world was like. We thought
it's just so hat stand, it really is.
I've got to know from the two of you, because you've read Peretti and other books like it. Since I left Christianity, I have a harder time reading those books than I do science fiction, as a for instance, and especially nonfiction, because there is an amount of willing suspension of disbelief that is harder for me now. Right? So these stories about sorting an engine, right? Yeah, I use this sword on this engine. But these kinds of things are much, much less believable to me now, and it's hard for me to get to the same level of willing suspension of disbelief to enjoy the stories. And I'm just, as a sort of aside, I wonder if either of you have the same kind of problem.
I'm sorry. There's a recurring joke between my wife and I when we see certain things on TV, big car accidents, explosions. And I'm just thinking about the sword in the engine, and the voice in my head is saying, your cut rate insurance may not cover this.
You are a bad boy. You are a very bad boy.
Things are about to go downhill. Andrew, I know you're trying to be serious.
Oh no,
It's too late.
The short answer, Andrew, is no, because one of my very favorite TV series is Supernatural.
And see,
We're
I
working
love
through it
Supernatural.
right now.
And it is awesome. It is genuinely awesome. So
I love all
And I
93
really-
seasons or whatever it is, right? I mean, the thing went on forever. It was great.
yeah,
Yeah,
10
I
or
think
11
there's-
seasons. Yeah.
Yeah, there's more.
There's a lot. It's worth going through. I've watched them all except for the last season because I have to pay for it if I want to watch it on Amazon Prime, and I'm such a tightwad. I'm going to wait till it's free on Prime, then I'm going to watch it because I'm that much of a stickler to my principles. But anyway, that's like no. So suspending the suspension of belief to enjoy this kind of fictional narrative is not a problem for me. And in some ways, I think I enjoy Supernatural far more because I'm an Xer.
Yeah, it is particularly reading for me. It doesn't have to, I don't have the same problem watching a movie. So it's an interesting sort of, thing. I have the problem reading, but I love the series Supernatural and everything like it.
Yeah, I read Peretti as a Christian and I read Peretti as an atheist, and I liked it both times. So I didn't
That's
have.
cool to hear.
Yeah, it's actually it's kind of almost therapeutic after Christianity, because I was here's a small insight into my particular brand of crazy. When I was coming out of Christianity, and everyone here knows that is not a sudden process at all. It is a process. It's not a moment. But in that moment, as I was coming around, I realized I didn't have any faith anymore. What I did have, though, was this latent fear. And it was a fear of Judgment Day. It was a fear of, what if Satan's real? What if hell is real? And the thing that would trigger me was train horns. So whenever I heard a train, because I would think that's what the final trumpet would sound like. And if when I'm walking around and I hear a train, I would have a start and I think, oh shit, I chose wrong. Oh no, it's just a train. That went on for probably a couple of years. It took me a while before I could enjoy the sound of a train horn, and I've always liked trains. But yeah, that was a kind of a scary moment for me, a scary time, a leftover of the sludge of Christianity in my head. And reading books like Peretti or Left Behind, and watching series like Supernatural, things like that, actually helped to desensitize me to some of that. Now I know that Christians are hearing this and they're thinking, you see, your conscience was telling you that this was real, and you intentionally desensitize yourself and quench the spirit, so you have no complaint. This is how they think. There's no way to talk about this without Christians thinking that way.
I was using those train horns just for you. Never mind the minivan going around the guardrails.
I fully
knows it was just for you.
I fully expect one of you to come up with a train horn clip, and I'm just going to say in advance, I hate you so much for what you're thinking about doing. So look, let's start
before
to
you
wrap
move
up.
on though, actually, before you move on though, I'd like to throw something in here as just an observation. Why is the supernatural weapon of choice a sword? Why not a crossbow? Why not an AK-47 or an AR-15? Why not a lightsaber? Why is it a sword? And before you guys jump in, my suggestion is, because it's a product of the time at which the idea was invented, i.e. the Middle Ages.
Yeah, no, that is the answer. No one else is going to have a different answer than that. That's just the answer. That thought actually occurred to me too, probably with my first time reading through Peretti, but also, Ephesians 6, put on the whole armor of God, sword of truth, breastplate of right. What the fuck is a breastplate? Have you ever put on a breastplate?
It's to protect your man boobies.
I mean, what is, there's nothing in my life that remotely resembles a breastplate of anything, but all of these illusions, of course, are things that they would have understood in the same way that people in that time would have been really impressed by streets of gold. Who wants streets of gold? I want streets of really good concrete that doesn't crack. Gold is a very soft, nasty material. It would never hold up. It wouldn't hold up to walking. But streets of gold just meant, affluence. Look, we've got all this affluence. We used to be poor, but we dreamed of gold, and now heaven is streets of gold. It's very much a product of its time. The amazing thing is that it somehow has made the leap to become a product of our time. Well, okay, I'm gonna start the wrap up process because we have a second show that we're gonna do, and you will hear this show first, I hope. But once it goes into podcast land and a few years later, who knows what you'll hear first. But in the order of shows, you will hear this show first. And I am going to warn you now, as we get ready to make closing statements here, you probably don't want to listen to the second show. I don't know why my audience isn't bigger. I keep telling people don't listen to the show. This is one of these times where I'm just going to say, if you've enjoyed this show, fantastic. Stop now. It's going to get really bad. And you don't want to go there. There will be other warning signs as we start the next show, but you might want to hit pause and think about what you're doing with your life for the next hour, because it's gonna get ugly. So
David's the master of reverse psychology here. This is the forbidden fruit that he's telling you not to eat.
Whatever you do, don't listen to the second show.
The serpent with the feet. Do not listen to the serpent with the feet.
So with that said, stop it. We're going to just stop. We're going to do some closing remarks now. I'll begin the closing remarks this way. I want to echo what Darren has said, what a few other people have said, what I've said in the past. I think it's really kind of the only close I can do that sounds natural to me, which is once the Satan story unravels, the whole story unravels. And Christians don't tend to think of that way. They don't understand what a liability the Satan story actually is. And they haven't put enough academic, philosophical, scientific, historical rigor into the Satan character. And so it's just out there dangling. As a result of that, it's a really, really bad, really, really incoherent story. So, for instance, I think, Christians, if you start trying, your conversion process by trying to convince people of your Satan story, I think you understand that you lose, right? That's a bad, because it's a dumb story. It just really is a dumb story. It doesn't hold together. Once people start asking questions about Satan, if you want to maintain anything of a presence in this world, you are going to have to work harder to come up with answers about Satan. You're going to have to quit getting mad when people ask you questions about Satan. It's the wrong approach. You're going to have to quit bristling when we bring up something that's uncomfortable about Satan. You're going to have to face the fact that it is a problem, and you're going to have to learn how to deal with that problem, or else Christianity has got maybe 2 more generations, and you're done. You are done, because it's not just that we don't buy the Satan character. It invalidates the rest of the story. It just invalidates it. It makes it seem ridiculous. In the same way that we can ridicule Satan, we can ridicule the rest of the story. Even if we wanted to, think seriously about some other part of the story, we just need to remind ourselves, this comes from the same people who also believe in the Satan guy. This is the same story that has the Satan guy in this other part. You can't buy that. And why do you want us to believe the Satan story? Because it says so in a book. You have absolutely nothing else to go with besides that. You have nothing else. With the Jesus character, at least you can pretend to care about history. With the creation story, you can pretend to care about science. With the Satan story, you got nothing but a ridiculous fairy tale that's held together by nothing. And that's the basis on which you want us to believe everything when it comes right down to it. The rest of your story isn't on any firmer of a foundation than its weakest link. And its weakest link is this Satan guy. So if you want to lose more people than you're losing already, then by all means, speak of the devil.
Was that someone else's cue to do their wrap up?
Yeah, I didn't give anyone any order. You've raised your hand, Matt.
All right.
Or everyone has taken a step back.
That's obviously the way that it's happened. It's already quite clear where my feelings are, so I won't repeat what I've already said. But what I will do is I'll plug an episode that Andrew and I are planning to record on Everyone's Still Unbelievable. I've made contact with a pastor who's written a couple of books, brilliantly titled Answering Skeptics Questions. And we've agreed a date to do a recording, and I've bought one of his books. And I read the introduction to his book last night, and he's telling a story about how he bought a house or was living in a house, but there was some kind of uncomfortable feeling. So he went and as part of something separate, he went and visited another pastor. And this other pastor told him that he had demons living in the closet of his house. And that was the cause of the uncomfortable feelings he was having. If you're writing a book titled Answering Skeptics Questions, the implication there is you're aiming this book at skeptics. And then in the introduction, you introduce the concept of demons living in your closet. You've created a problem.
Sorry.
Just saying, you've created a problem. I'm now slightly less incentivized to go through the rest of the book, but I've set the date, and so I need to finish reading this book. I'm sorry, Andrew, you need to read it as well. But this is where we find ourselves. Andrew, your turn.
Okay. I have very little to say here. I'm actually just going to repeat something I said earlier in calling for this segment. You've got a God, and this is the story, who can make souls at will. And if you believe in an all-powerful God that can make souls, you've got one who simply couldn't make enough of the kind he wanted. Your God can't make enough of the kind of soul he wanted without putting the rest of us at risk. I don't buy it. The end.
Darren.
Yeah, I don't know if I have really a good closing either.
Wait a minute, are you implying that Andrew's closing wasn't good?
Oh no, it's perfect, but it was, a repeat of what he's already saying, and I'm gonna be doing the same thing. The problem is that the world we live in does not look like the world the Christian mythology describes. I mean, we have 15,000 children that die every year, or every day. 15,000 children die every day before under the age of 5, and that just isn't a world that a loving God would exist in. A world with a hidden Satan also is not a world that we would live in. And because if Satan's job really is to go ahead and lead people away from God, then what would be the most effective way to do that? He comes up, he shows himself to everyone and says, hey, this God thing that you've been worshiping, yeah, that's not real. But I'm real because I'm here, I'm showing myself, and I can do all these really cool magic tricks. This proves that I am who I say I am. That is the most effective way to go ahead and blind people to God, a God that refuses to show himself, and that's not happening. So unless not only is your God incompetent, but also the devil is also incompetent, then the whole mythology just is not what the world looks like.
Mr. The Wise.
Yeah, this was a really interesting show, both the Christian panel and this one. Thanks for having me on it. I'd like to close just by saying, I've now been doing Skeptics and Seekers for 3 years as a listener, a forum participant, and now also being on the mic. And at this stage of the game, I think it's clear that the Christians aren't going to convince the skeptics, and the skeptics aren't going to convince the Christians. The real point of this conversation is to reach the third party, the person that's out there doubting, the person that doesn't know where they fall down, the person that's afraid to speak up in public, the person that is afraid of what their friends, their family, their job, their church is going to do to them if they start to seriously question beliefs that they were given when they were young and that they're afraid to question and afraid to give up. So, I don't have any illusion that anything any of us has said is going to make Dale change his mind. So I hope it's clear that the point of these conversations is to reach the other person that's out there, the third party. And I'd invite any of those people that are listening to listen to both shows. Listen to them twice if you have to. I'd listen to the Christian show a couple times just to make sure I didn't miss anything that they were saying. And come join us on the message board. Tell us what you think. How is the skeptic side lacking? What aren't we addressing? What do we need to say that's going to get this thing to move forward for you? And I invite you to pose those same questions to the Christians as well, because at the end of the day, there are people on either pole, and then there's a whole bunch of people in the middle. And I would love to see if we could move the needle and get more people to become more skeptical about everything, but in this topic in particular.
Right, and I would just tack on to that. We are generally in the comment skeptics and seekers.squarespace.com. You can just click on any show. We're generally in there. You can access us. We're not just talking heads on a show. We're real people with actual lives, but we don't, if you want to challenge us harshly and have an exchange, most of us are crazy enough to do it. We're right there. It's a little bit harder to get Christians to do it, but if you're a Christian and you want to challenge any of this, we're all very accessible. Just put it out there. We'll be there, because that's the kind of nerd we are. And so that said, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this show up. It's been a great show, a great series, and a fantastic season. And so I want to thank everyone who's listened this season. Season 4, we usually start up in the spring around football season. And by football, I mean real football. I say the spring, the fall. Yeah, the fall around, real football season, So yeah, football, where it's illegal to actually use your foot on the ball. Don't question it, okay? This is how we do it here. So that said, there are usually one or two shows in the summer sprinkled in. There will be this case as well. We already have a show recorded with Dale and Val and myself talking free will. That'll come out in a few weeks. We've got at least one or two what I call non sequitur shows where we get together, both the Christians and the atheists, and blow off some steam and talk about nothing particularly serious. Those are some of the best shows we do. And
there is a part 2 of this show coming right after this, right?
And there is a part 2 of this show that shall not be mentioned because you shouldn't listen to it. So stop it. So
apologies if I
yeah, you've just encouraged someone to seek the next show, Andrew, against my wishes.
Satanic.
So goodbye, everybody. Well, hello, and welcome to yet another exciting version of Skeptics and Seekers. I'm feeling strange. We are going to do something that is ill-advised. In fact, as I've researched this all year, I have found lots of advice on how to do it and lots of advice not to do it. It's very dangerous, deathly, but I'm going to do it for the sake of science. And if I lose my soul in the process, at least some of you will see what happened to me and be saved before it's too late. I and a few of my friends are going to invoke and attempt to become possessed by a demon. Okay. We have Andrew, and we have Darren. We have Matthew, and we have Mr. the Wise. All of you, I love you all as my friends. It's not too late. If anyone wants to back out now, I'll understand. I'm just going to give you about 5 seconds and you can walk away and you'll be okay.
I don't want to, but I have no choice.
Okay. Well, I'm going to give the floor over to Matthew, who has a very limited time. And I want to thank Matthew for all of the help he has given me over the course of this season, especially. Matthew, we wish we could have had you a little bit longer, but for the sake of your time, you have the floor.
Yes, this would have been fun to do. So let's, assuming that you survive and I do get to see you again, because let's be honest, that's highly doubtful now that I know what's going on. But let's assume you do, and you're not too traumatized. We can absolutely do this again. I will be honest, I might have struggled to take it as seriously as is necessary if I'd been staying on, but let's put that to one side. So yeah, so I have to sign off now for some family time at home. I'll be watching television downstairs with my family. So I want to make a very specific request. Andrew has got my mobile number, so he can text me when this is over, when your thing is over, and I can text him back. In fact, let me say that in your ending sequence, as you're rolling up to the end, why doesn't Andrew text me to ask me if anything's gone on, and I can text him the answer back, and then you can have that answer as part of your closing summaries of what you're about to do. So I'll be downstairs watching TV with my family. I won't be connected up here. So if you're whoever it is that you summon, if they're capable, I would like you guys to request that some kind of intervention is done in the electronics of my house while I'm watching television with my household, because if that happens, I am pretty sure that it'll be impossible for me to miss it. So that is a very specific request that I'm making to you guys. Andrew will text me towards the end of the show to ask me if anything happened, and I'll text him back to say exactly what happened. And then you guys can then discuss the results of that short experiment in your closing. So that's my proposal to you guys. Hopefully me throwing this in at you at last minute just before I hoist off isn't going to be too much of a problem. Good luck, guys. Stay safe, and I genuinely hope I see you again just as beautiful as you are now.
Well, we hope so too. And I will just say, as you were signing off, we will request an interruption in your power plus gallstones, because I want to make sure, just want to be sure. I want to be sure, you know, because
Okay,
storms
I'm
happen,
nervous
powers
now.
get, yeah.
This just stepped up a notch.
So
Shit got
Matthew, I
real
was
now.
actually just going for the toaster, man. I was just gonna ask about the toaster.
I bought a brand new toaster last week, and a brand new washing machine, and a brand new dishwasher. So anything but those. Please. I could do with a new computer, so you can kill the computer. A new bigger TV, that's also fine. So maybe you can kill that as well.
The computer is
But
not
not
a
the
good
Xbox,
test.
not the Xbox, please. I
The
like my
computer's not a
Xbox.
good test. It already runs Windows. Those burst into flames randomly without.
Bastard. I knew you guys were unreliable. Right, okay. Do your worst, guys, and I will catch up with you next time.
Matthew, I appreciate you, brother.
I'm going to begin sharing my screen. I have one or two things. So let's see. Sound is sharing. We'll start here. Have any of you ever encountered a demon or anything you thought was a demon? We need to establish a baseline so that we know if we are encountering a demon later on. So do you have any experience with that? Do you know what to look for? Also, do we have any indication that you're not already possessed? Because if you are, then this is not going to be a good experiment. So let me just start there. Darren, are you possessed?
I've been called the devil and servant of Satan fairly seriously by theists for quite a while now, so maybe.
Okay. Brian, how would we know if you caught a demon?
So I don't know if I've ever been demon possessed. You know, it might have been during my thrash heavy metal phase in high school. Maybe that's when I was possessed by a demon. But I suspect if I were demon possessed now, that my voice would sound like Perry Como.
Okay, so you're thinking a voice change would be a sign of possession. Andrew, what do you think about that? Okay. So it seems like a possession is already underway. I don't know. So we might have to wing it, but this is a part of the problem with the Christian story of demon possession. If you're going to believe in demon possession, you have to have a baseline for what it's like not to be demon possessed. And you have to have a baseline for then what it constitutes demon possession. Last week, this past week, we had some comments on the board about supernatural skeptical stupidity. And my main question about supernatural skeptical stupidity is, how do you distinguish that from regular skeptical stupidity? I don't. So how can you tell? If I become demon possessed, will my posts get stupider? Honestly, I don't know how I would tell. So
I have to say that I think has been my favorite claim of the entire season, that there is a supernatural stupidity, because there's been times where I've backed my car into the garage door, and perhaps I shouldn't be so blamed for it, right? Maybe that was the supernatural stupidity that I was doing.
I assure you, I'm capable of extremely high levels of stupidity on my own.
This is absolutely correct, right? I don't need any help with all the errors I'm making every single day.
And I don't want to set a devil taking the credit for my stupidity. So
Here's the funny thing: demons are not very smart, right? Because if they were, the first thing they wouldn't do is tell everybody that they're possessing you. So I mean, is that like God governs certain kinds of things demons can do, right? So you can possess someone, but if you do, you must always tell them that they're possessed, so everybody else knows. I don't get it. I don't get it.
Well, David may have actually accidentally given us a criteria to test, because Satan supposedly fell originally because of arrogance and pride, right? Well, if we blame all of David's stupidity on the devil, is that a way to summon him and get him to actually interact with the world, work on his pride?
Okay, look, we're gonna get started here. I already can't take myself seriously.
I thought we were already possessed. I thought this was over. Now I'm nervous.
I know it's coming, and I can't take it. I'm gonna be undone. People, it's been a long series, a long season, and I'm just undone. So I'm sorry.
Ever the showman.
It's going to go downhill from here. This is the high point. So I'm going to start with a video, of useful instructional video to help us get started. Andrew, do you still have your Latin incantation handy? I'm going to take that as a yes. So, by the way, folks, this is how he sounds all the time when we talk on the phone. So let's just start with a little bit of light instructional. I won't get into the heavier stuff. Just here we go. Everyone can see my screen, right?
Hello, my name is Isabella, but you can call me Raven Black. In this video, I'm going to be informing you on how to summon the satanic spirit of Lucifer. As you can see, I've prepared the pentagram. It should be flipped upside down, which represents the devil's horns. And you
David, the scary quotient is disappearing.
Don't make fun of the devil's horns, man. He was very prideful of those.
It's very important that you turn the pentagram in exactly the right way to represent the horn.
By the way, is this girl from an episode of Dawson's Creek or something? This was your go-to for demon summoning?
I have more. I thought this would be a way of easing into it, kind of a demon summoning for dummies. It's sorry.
Situate 5 candles around the pentagram, and now we're just gonna light them.
So does this mean you
You're
have
also
candles
going
in
to
the pentagram?
Prepare some offerings for your for this being, because he's a
I'm
very
offering the video
a very
as
important
the
spirit.
pentagram
So
and
you're just gonna
candle.
lay those in the center of your pentagram.
What she doesn't go. What are the offerings? Can you guys tell what that is?
Ketchup packets, maybe?
Sorry.
Hey, Tomato had to die in order to get those.
How does she know the demon doesn't prefer tartar sauce? I mean, that just.
Well, I mean, there's lots
You're
of demons,
also going
right?
to want to prepare a few chants. I've selected 2, which you can find online on any dark magic website. My first one is Diabolus, and the second is Sanctus Satanis, and they're both in Latin, which is really an effective language for this sort of task. And now,
Okay.
Must have sucked to live in Rome.
At this point, Andrew, I think you have a few Latin words that you should say 3 times each.
Well, if you don't have the pentagram set up, does that even gonna work?
It's on the screen. It's the digital age. They can see through the screen, can't they?
I don't think you're taking this seriously, David.
Hey, hang on! Don't interrupt the incantation. Okay. Andrew, where's my incantation? I was promised incantations.
I've lost it. I've lost it. I've now been possessed. There's no ability to perform the other incantations. But I'm going to take this. Right? She's clearly an amateur because she needs a lighter to light the candles.
I have no idea why visions of Papa Smurf came to my mind as a kid who was doing this. We don't need it.
for some atmosphere, we're just going to turn the lights off.
It's very
keeps
important.
everything restful, so the whole focus is on the spirit.
It's
so
restful.
This is how it should look with your candles.
I was thinking the Charlie Brown teachers, David. That's the vibe I'm getting.
So now that we have our room prepared, you're going to want to sit at the base of the pentagram, the pentacle, sorry. I've been calling it a pentagram this whole time. And you're gonna want to sit cross-legged because that is the most respectful.
I'm sorry. Sitting cross-legged. That's the most respectful position.
It's not why I can be able to sit cross-legged.
I'm sorry. I understand that people take this seriously.
It's the best seating position.
Just a couple more minutes here.
Hold your paper that has your instructions.
Well, keep in mind this is 100% real, not clickbait, because it says so in the title.
100% real.
Sorry,
that's why I chose it. Of course.
I've chosen 2 because I want the effect to be more powerful.
Yeah, I'm just gonna skip through some of this. Yeah.
Because 666.
She's gonna
go on with it. If goes wrong, God forbid. Ask to pray and hope that nothing goes wrong.
So she prays first.
And it's very important to have a clean conscience while you're doing this. Your spirits have to be still because any negative energy you have, any worries you have, will distort the air, and bad things might happen. Some things might go unleashed in the house, but anyways, I'm gonna start with my first chant or incantation is called Diabolus. So remember 6 times each. I'm gonna start with this one. Dies irae, dies illa, solvet seculum in favilla, teste Satan cum sibilla, quantos tremor est futurus, quando vindex est venturus, sumpta stride discussurus, dies irae, dies illa, dies illa.
Okay. All right. Just a quick reality check. Just want to go around the room. Does anyone feel different right now? Has a possession begun? Anyone on the panel?
I think I had my iPhone turned in the wrong direction, so the pentagram wasn't facing the right way.
It's very important. The horns have to be. Aren't you paying attention?
I was. It was technology. That wasn't a demon. It was technology.
Okay. I'm going to take us to a better, I think, more serious attempt here. But first,
Make sure everyone likes and subscribes to Raven's Blood's channel there.
yeah, because it's real. It's not fake. She promises.
Oh, it says so right
now
on
she's gonna go
the
do.
thing,
Now she's
right?
gonna go do her algebra homework.
Yes. So, Raven, sweetie, I'm not laughing at you. I'm laughing with, oh, fuck it. I'm laughing at you. I'm so sorry. Before we go to the next video, can everyone still see this okay? Can everyone see my screen okay?
Yep.
Okay, good.
Got
So
it.
I have been told from childhood that the most certain gateway to demon possession is a Ouija board. Of all of the things that Christians feared when I was a kid, Ouija boards, they were, I didn't even know what a Ouija board was until probably my late teens, but I knew that it was a doorway to hell. I knew that much. So, you know, we're gonna try it here. Anyone got any Ouija board experience? What's your favorite Ouija boards moment?
Had these two friends. I guess I was 9 or 10. The two little girls, Katie and Tracy, had a Ouija board, and have no idea how they came by it. I think some parents actually buy their children Ouija boards. Well, you know, that's good parenting. And we played with a Ouija board in their garage pretty often, actually. And the funny thing was, you could always tell who wanted what result, right? Because there would be these moments of fighting over the little pointer. What's that thing called in the middle of the board there? What's that?
A flanchette, I think is what it is.
Okay, so there was always this fighting.
Quality research here on Skeptics and Seekers, people.
And so you could tell who wanted what answer, right? Because you're supposed to be touching the thing lightly, but by the end of the thing, you're practically wrestling on the floor over who gets to decide yes, no, or which letters or numbers you choose. So there you go. That's my peer-reviewed research on Ouija boards.
Brian, do you have a question for the afterlife? I'll be happy to put it in. The dark side of the afterlife, not the good side.
Yeah, no, definitely. Let's see. Will the second heaven after Jesus coming, will it fail again like it did in the past?
Okay. Let's find. I'm not manipulating this at all, people. I'm obviously not manipulating this at all. So let me try this again.
Never mind the mouse pointer.
Yeah, no. This worked beforehand. And no, I think my computer is possessed. Just give me a minute. Okay. There we go. Up. No.
100% real here. 100%.
Yeah,
real.
look, it's not me. It's not me. All I'm doing is hovering my mouse over the thing and it moves by itself. Oh my God. But the second heaven's going to be pretty good. Hey, Darren, is there a request you have from the other side?
Well, given how many scientists aren't actual theists at the moment. Have they discovered a way to air conditioning, add air conditioning to hell yet?
Okay. What am I can't write. Is hell air conditioned? Okay. Is it? Oh my goodness. Nope. Okay. All right, good. So it's still the same old hell. Andrew, I'll give you a shot here before I move to the next video. Is there something or maybe someone you would like to talk to?
Yeah, I just have a question. Is there any hope for getting people who make Ouija boards to actually put the number line in order with 0 before 1 rather than after the 9?
All
It's
right.
a real question. It drives me crazy.
I feel like you might be taking the gods of the Ouija frivolously, but I'm putting the question in there.
They can't count them.
G. No, that's all. We just got G. Nope, that's all it's got for me.
As if to say, oh, gee, one question.
Right. So we'll continue our experimentation with the Ouija board, but I've got more. Yeah, this is quick. Just
Sadrakab Riyarp Sadrol. Nima Reverov Irog et Dena. Riwap et. Mongenik et si Enethrof. Livmorph su reviled tub noitat pamet. Okne tensu diel dena. Su Seniaga. Sapsert o Isot Evigorov. U sa Sesapsert. Ruo su Igivrov dena. Gaerb. Iliad Ruo Yad Seat Su Ivig. Nivae Nisitisa. Hitrai no Inad Eb Liu Eat Emak. Modgenik Eat. Iman Eat Eb Dewola. Nevae Nitra O Retaf Ruo. Natas Lia.
okay. So what you just heard is a time-honored tradition in summoning a demon. If you didn't recognize it, shame on you. It was the Lord's Prayer backward. Because somewhere in the early centuries, somebody figured out that if you just say the words of the Lord's Prayer backwards, a demon would come up because they like the sound of that.
And it also includes the phrase "eat Viagra," apparently.
It just sounds like speaking in tongues. I mean, the Pentecostals have been doing this for a long time. So there's for those who, would like to take the tradition slightly more seriously, let me just point out here, there are problems with the Lord's Prayer backward as a method for summoning the demons, because there's more than one version of the Lord's Prayer. So that's a problem. Which one do you use? It's a
And how
little
do you-
bit like, yeah, go
And how
ahead.
do you know you're getting the pronunciation correct?
Well, right. So setting pronunciation aside, we'll get to that in just a second with this other video. What language should you use for the original Lord's Prayer? Which version, which translation? So
If you have to get the language correct, does that mean that no one with a speech impediment can summon a demon? That seems so.
I think that might be what it means. There, so all of these issues with reciting the Lord's Prayer have been seriously discussed by people for ages. But you know, your mileage may vary. We've given a Lord's Prayer here. I just wanted that on video because I can't I can't say it. I'm assuming
I think Raven's Blood previously told us that Latin was the best language to do these things in, so we should listen to her.
Okay. Well, the Lord's Prayer sounds the same to me backwards and forwards in Latin. So it's all Greek to me. So okay. For the serious part of the show. Give me a second. I think you're gonna appreciate this. I'm gonna pick up this video already underway. Let's see. I'm gonna get rid of that. And
Satan, the baddest hoe to fall from heaven since Hades. But Satan is a lot less jolly than it might seem. In fact, you could go so far as to call him mean-spirited. He's a bad guy. Despite this, legend tells of countless people attempting to summon the devil. Some were merely curious, others wanted to sell their soul in exchange for their wildest desires. Varying as much as their motivation was their method to summon him. Having gone through dozens of such folktales, I have identified some of the best ways to summon the devil. I'm all about helping my subscribers improve themselves, so for those of you who lie awake at night wishing you could meet Satan, there must be at least one of you. Here are some options. It seems like religion has always told of a fallen deity who became the embodiment of evil, from ancient Babylonian to Maori tradition. In Christianity, the devil is drawn from a variety of ancient Greek, Celtic and Abrahamic beliefs, giving us the Prince of Darkness we all know and love. But it's not all positive. The devil does have a mean side. One of the figures he was based on is a fallen angel from Jewish lore called Sataniel. Not being mentioned in the New Testament, it's as if he and many others were simply absorbed into one terrible being, Satan. But no matter how evil or powerful our perception of the devil became, some have always tried to reach him. By the late 19th century, a dark renaissance unfolded. Across the globe, secret societies were born around the occult and the study of all things mysterious. People spent their entire lives investigating magic, the paranormal and Satanism. Among them was Aleister Crowley. Crowley was the most notorious of all Victorian occultists, being known as the wickedest man in the world, and the Beast, a name even his mother used for him. He believed in magic, and claims to have developed a prayer to summon the devil. Rumours spread that mispronouncing the prayer would cause a person to lose their mind, so it's...
I'm sorry, just... Okay. It is at this point that we're going to participate in a group event. Anyone who dares. The words of the prayer are going to pop up on the screen. I'm going to turn the volume down, and we are going to say this prayer together. Now, you can trust this prayer because it was carefully crafted by the most evil man in the world. So I think you're going to enjoy the prayer. Just be careful.
Even his mother was calling him those names. Oh my goodness, the poor guy.
Be careful of your pronunciation. Because you will lose your mind if you mispronounce something. So let me just
I'm gonna do some exercise.
Rumours spread that mispronouncing the prayer would cause a person to lose their mind, so it's not a prayer that should be taken lightly. But I'm going to reveal it here anyway, because views. Apparently it goes like this.
Was he wearing a George Washington hat there? What was that? What was that?
Okay, here we go. Andrew, just kind of snuggle up to the screen here. I'm gonna have a little trouble with it myself, but I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna make it as big as possible.
Let's go.
I invoke thee, the terrible, and invisible God, who dwellest in the void place of the Spirit. Arro, go, Arro.
Thou spiritual son, Satan,
thou lust. Cry aloud, whirl the wind, oh my Father, oh Satan, oh Son, so too thou the Savior, Maduril, silence.
Give me thy secret.
Give me thy secret. Falau, give me suck, thou phallus.
What? Oh, Satan.
So I think you both have mispronounced it a couple times at this point. Are you feeling mad or insane?
We're toast.
I gotta go back.
Suck me into saying pornography here. What the heck's going on?
I thought I was gonna make it all the way through. Just give me
Philosopher, come on.
I'm gonna take a run at this now. You're gonna have to talk fast because I'm not gonna pause anymore.
All right, I'm ready.
Okay.
Darren's protecting himself.
Well, I figure someone has to be the objective observer.
Silence, give thy secret. Philosopher, give me suck thy phallus, thy son. Go, Satan, thou I, thy lust. Oh, Satan, thou I, thy lust. Satan, thou I, thy lust. Afi, thou self-caused, self-determined, exalted, most high.
Okay,
now
so
we're
you
in Charlie Chaplin the movie.
You both definitely mispronounced a lot of that. So.
Oh, totally.
So
obviously
insanity,
I'm going
right?
insane. How can you measure it?
I think you have to have an objective observer on the outside to measure it for you.
All right. Oh, poor Matt. I hate you missed this, my friend. I would have loved to hear in the British accent, give me suck, oh phallus.
That is an interesting point. Does his accent mean that he's automatically going to mispronounce the prayer?
I don't know what
maybe it means,
Satan
since they're
speaks.
closer to the old world, maybe it means that we all mispronounce it.
Oh, okay. All right. Look, the important thing that you need to take away from this is that there are people, perfectly sane, well-balanced human beings who take this shit seriously. Okay. They are, even at this moment, covering their ears and praying to God in forgiveness for having heard the satanic prayer, because it is a real thing to them in their minds. Now, first of all, I told them not to listen, so it's on you. But I just want to have a moment of conversation here while I get my body in order. What goes through your mind when you see a ritual like that, and you hear things like that, and you pair it with the fact that people take this seriously? I mean, could you, for instance, look your boss in the eye the same way if you knew that they took this seriously?
No.
I mean, I'm going to have trouble just not laughing the next time I encounter a cashier. I want to just ask everybody, hey, do you take this Satan shit seriously?
So that's a good segue. By the way, I presume that my voice is back to normal and it's not being modified through.
Yeah.
Okay. So Darren sent something over an email. I guess we heterodyned here, Darren. We had very similar thoughts. I talked to David about this last week. And so moving into something slightly more serious, because I can't take any more videos right now. It's hit my ridiculous quotient for the moment. But there's a problem to me with Pascal's wager. So if there are any listeners, I doubt there are, but if out there,
we're just talking to each other, my friend.
Right. Well, if there are any listeners who are not aware of Pascal's wager, Blaise Pascal suggested that that the Christian life, even if it didn't lead to heaven, was a good life. And so why not live the Christian life, regardless of whether there was a God or not? But it seems to me that there are some real problems with this sort of thing as a wager. So I want to talk about both problems for a moment and suggest why I think there's a better Pascal's wager. And it applies really to both trains of thought. So if Pascal was right, and he was a Christian, and he thought there was an afterlife, his wager takes for granted that God must be the superior being in this fight of wills between good and evil. And I would suggest that the answer to that question, God is superior, is not that clear cut. And so Pascal's wager is wrong. If God and Satan are actually in a fight, what you should do.
Sorry, I've inadvertently cut you off, Andrew, I think, although it's still recording. Or maybe I just cut myself off. Can you?
Who can hear me? Anyway.
I think my audio just went foobar.
Okay, can you hear us now?
Okay, go ahead.
Andrew, I
got
heard everything you said, Andrew.
No, it was me. My volume just shit the bed for a second. Go ahead.
Okay, so if there is a God and a Satan and they're in an eternal war, the prayer that you should pray is not the thing that you should wager on is not Pascal's wager, but a modified and better Pascal's wager. You should try both lives. You should try a Christian life and a satanic life. See which one is most fulfilling. And the prayer that you should pray, if you want one of them to be on your side, if you're going to have a prayer life in Pascal's wager, then the prayer should properly be to God and Satan, lords of this world, I have no idea which of you reigns supreme, but I am willing to be your vassal, your servant, your undying liege. I will prosecute my life for the one of you who is most willing to demonstrate his influence in my life, worlds without end, and let one of them reign supreme. And if there is not a God or a Satan, and Pascal is simply wrong, then you should lead whatever life you think will be most fulfilling. And the Christian life is not necessarily the one that is most fulfilling. So I think Blaise Pascal had it wrong. I think Pascal's wager is wrong on every possible count. And I wonder what the three of you think.
I think it's an exceptionally good point. And it reminds me of some of the conversations I've had with Teddy over the season. And I've enjoyed those conversations. But I think the thing that stands out with Teddy's theology, and it seems like everyone's commented on it, is her sense that she's really afraid of God. She's her God is one that's scary to her. Her God will gank you in a second. And so you should believe in that God. And this modified version of Pascal's wager actually makes more sense of Teddy's idea. She should not, in fact, be pulling for God. She should be pulling for the winner. Whoever proves to be the biggest, baddest, strongest, meanest kid on the block, that's who she should be best friends with. And so her wager ought to be, I am open to you, and leave you open-ended to whoever wins the damn spiritual war. Because it kind of puts a little bit of a lie to her argument if she doesn't say that. The reason is she says, well, we're just being hypocrites, because if we were faced with the real God, that we would tremble and shit bricks and worship him anyway. Well, I would argue that if she's faced with the real Satan, who happens to win, she would do the same. And so if her argument is that we should worship God because he's really big man on campus, I would simply argue that she should be at least open to worshiping Satan for the same reason, because it looks like, by all accounts, he's the one who's winning.
Yeah,
and
well,
you've
to
got
be fair,
to
she has said that that's what she would do.
Yeah, I mean, it's a terrible way, a thought process to have, but that's what you have to believe if you have a God kind of like Teddy's. And so I would say that if you're going to do any form of Pascal, it shouldn't be in favor of any particular God. It should be, I am open to all gods, all supernatural bullies, all possibilities, all religions, all worldviews, and whoever can take me, this empty vessel, that's who I will serve. That's what you should say. But that's not what Christians say.
Yeah, for me, Pascal's wager is fails because they haven't actually presented any God. I mean, if you're going to wager on a God, you would think that the first thing you'd want to do is actually demonstrate that what you're wagering on, exists. I know that's sort of tangential to the wager itself, since the wager is about you should believe even if there isn't a God. But it's sort of hard to take it seriously when you can't even present the God. So which God, am I wagering on? The Egyptian gods, Greek gods, Norse gods, the Zoroastrian gods, the cult of Judas's gods,
American Indian gods.
So I wanted to just take a few more serious moments to have a little bit of reflection, because I wanted to talk a little bit before we go away for the season about why this particular show is important to me, why the stunt is important to me, and why, frankly, I think everybody should do it. So am I engaging in a bit of mockery and having some fun? Yes, absolutely. But there is a serious aspect to it, and it's about epistemology, and it's about the honesty and integrity of your epistemological efforts. If you have done some real seeking in your life and you found no God at the end of your prayer, why did you stop there? And Christians, why do you insist that they only seek God? Because there are more godlike beings in your story. So it seems like you need to exhaust, at the very least, exhaust the gods of the story before you stop seeking. And Satan is the god of this world. So it seems like, first of all, if you're gonna seek any god at all to see if he's there, it would be the one that's close to you, the god of this world. Why not seek that one? And Christians, what they tell you is you need to open your heart to our God, and have such a mindset so that you are open to God's presence, and you say this doubter's prayer, and you welcome God into your life. Okay, I'll tell you what, let's make a deal. I'll pray that prayer, and I'll pray the one for Satan too, because surely at least one of these beings is going to answer a prayer. It doesn't matter. This is the beauty of it for the Christian. It doesn't matter which one of them answers your prayer. You got a supernatural sign for something that this stuff is real. So you ought to at least have the courage of your conviction and prove that it's real, especially if you're one of those Christians like I was, who never really got the answer from the God you were praying for all your life. Also, just epistemically speaking, the Christians tell us all the time, you can't prove God's existence through your materialistic methods. Science isn't going to prove God's existence. Observation isn't going to prove God's existence. Yada, yada, yada. Okay. Well, what about Satan's existence? Can we prove that? Because Christians are once again, they're banging on about things like Ouija boards and, people accidentally, tripping up on a crack on the sidewalk and getting possessed by a demon. Great. Sounds easier to reach that side than the other side. So let's do some experimentation. Let's set up some cracks in the sidewalk. Let's set up a Ouija board. Let's, get a pentagram or pentacle or whatever the heck it is. Make sure that the points are, upright to represent the demon's horns. Do whatever it takes to test that side empirically. But I've got a feeling, I can hear the Christians in this supernatural frequency in my head, and what they're saying is, yeah, well, Satan doesn't do parlor tricks either. So what are we to do then? Your God won't come out. And you tell us that Satan will possess you, but when we're trying to get possessed, he will only possess you if you're not trying to get possessed, apparently. I'm trying to get possessed. No demon has showed up. Nothing supernatural has happened. What does a guy have to do to get any kind of empirical feedback from the other side? And if you're listening to Christians, apparently there's not a goddamn thing you can do, but you could accidentally get possessed somehow.
And you still need to take them serious about the whole thing.
And you still got to take them seriously. And so this is me taking this seriously right now. Quite seriously, if I am overcome by some alien being, it can happen right here on camera. My camera's on. If my head spins all the way around, yeah, I'm still. Okay, nope. If I get green vomit dyspepsia or whatever it takes, you'll see it. Superpowers, I don't know. So run the experiment. If you take it seriously, people, run the experiment. And if your experiments fail with both the light side and the dark side, then maybe the Force and the midichlorians are just fucking fiction.
I want to know, I'm
And it-
really curious about what all of you think about this. I want to know what it means when Christians say God will win. The pieces on the board, when we talk about winning a game, right? It's usually the collection of pieces. By any counting measure, and by standard Christian orthodoxy, Satan's already won. 9 out of 10, 99 out of 100, 999 out of 1,000, pick your number, but whatever it is, God takes very few. And this for me is a very strange way to view winning a game. Now, maybe the Christian pieces are the most important pieces. That doesn't follow for me. And so superpowers aside, the ability to infect my mind or whatever, this is the way we look at war. This is the way we look at the games we play. And even when I was a Christian, I didn't understand what it meant for God to win 1 in 1,000. Never
understood that either. Brian, chime in. You're an extion. The whole idea of at some point the war is going to be over, and we can enjoy the victory that we've already prematurely declared. What does that look like? What does it mean for God to win a war that we can't even define? I mean, did you ever even think about that at all?
Yeah, I mean, I thought that in the future there would be a perfect existence in heaven with Jesus and God, and all sin gone and no more devil. He's cast in the lake of fire and he's finished. So yeah, those were the terms that I thought in when I was a Christian trying to be faithful.
Yeah, but that doesn't really address the brunt of the problem. Yes, we assume that after all of it, that's going to be the state. But how do we get to that end point? What are they fighting for, and how will we know that Satan lost? I mean, will God just hit a button, big red button, saying it's all over? Or is there a battle of a certain number of souls, and then when that number of souls is reached, it's all over? Or is God actually trying to hunt down Satan, but Satan has been able to elude him? And when he finally catches him, it's all over. How does it end?
Far more than he wins. I mean, so the individual could claim winning, right? So one of you goes to heaven and the rest of us do not. So maybe Darren ends up in heaven accidentally, right? The rest of us don't end up in heaven. So maybe Darren won. But in no sense that I can see did Jehovah win. Even if Darren landed on the right side of the board, I don't see that means that God, the player, won the game, even if that piece was captured for him.
Right. The thing that Andrew is alluding to, that he assumes that everybody knows, is the passage of scripture that talks about that indicates that the majority of souls will be lost and only a few will be saved.
It's the gate that leads to destruction.
Straight, exactly. And few there be that find the narrow gate. Many there be that find the broad gate. It's a very clear indication that when this is all over, only a remnant, if you will, only a few will be saved. And so if you're waiting around for when God finally gets 51% of the souls, that's never going to happen. it's already prophesied. Jesus said it himself. It's out of his mouth, so it got to be true, right? It's not clickbait. I promise. Jesus, sorry. Jesus said this, and so it's not like we're waiting around for God to produce more saved souls than Satan. Numerically speaking, he's already lost. It's already written. It's never going to happen, and so that's why people like Andrew and I sit wondering, well, what is the war then? What are the stakes? What are you what are you fighting for? Because I don't get it. What's if God could end the war? Why not just end it? Nobody seems to know what the stakes are supposed to be, and what it would look like for the war to end, or what it means for God to win, other than just arbitrarily declaring, I win. And if that's all we're doing, you're just waiting for God to arbitrarily declare, I win. Honestly, that should trouble Christians greatly. All right, Darren, help us start to wrap it up, my friend.
Well, yeah, I don't know. When you're set up with this kind of mythology, it's really hard to take it seriously, because I mean, as you already mentioned, the Christians are saying that God and the devil play in the real world all the time, and yet they're not detectable by any human means. I don't know. As an outsider looking in, I just don't get it, and I don't understand why anyone else takes the Christian mythology seriously. The world just doesn't look like a loving God created it, and the world doesn't look like there's an evil God running it. The whole thing, as far as I can tell, is just largely incoherent, and the apologists don't help any by trying to fix it. From what I can tell, they just make things worse. And you're right with this whole experiment. If the devil is actually possessing people or influencing people or doing anything, it should be trivially easy for the Christian to demonstrate that that's true, especially considering how much we know of how the brain works, how the body works, and how it all sort of comes together. If Christianity were true, it should be just trivially easy to prove that it's true one way or the other. And the fact that they're constantly coming up with excuses as to why they can't, I think, is probably the biggest indicator that none of it actually is true.
Andrew, I'm saving you for last, Brian.
So
Mr. The
first-
Wise, there'd be a lot of pressure on you, sir.
So
Go ahead,
first,
Andrew.
this is worth pointing out. We opened with an experiment from Matthew. Matthew said, "Do your worst." In the time that we've been chatting, I've emailed him and texted him. Matthew's doing fine. Further, he says the dog's still alive too. The toaster, the washing machine, the dryer, they're all intact. Now, maybe you'd say, well, that's just what he would say, right? So the demon took over, and I don't know, rationalize it however you want. That's just what he would say, even if something went wrong. But there is an open experiment here, and as much mockery as we made of it, even if you would say to yourselves, well, of course, the Holy Spirit isn't going to participate because the Holy Spirit wouldn't participate in mockery, right? The Orthodox Christian view should be, yeah, well, Satan wants you, mockery or not, because that's who Satan is. He's the bad guy. And there are 4 of us, and we're all the same people that we were when we started. And that leads me to just say this. I'm a weak atheist. I'm not saying that there is no God. I'm also not saying that there is no Satan. But I have no good reason to believe there is. And this experiment, along with thousands, millions, maybe even billions of them like it every day, just mean that when you put your selection bias aside, when you stop counting the hits and ignoring the misses, what you find is that the best explanation for this world, and by the way, the one that allows us to do the most with it and to get along the most successfully, is the one where we do away with our magical thinking and address each other across the table as if we're humans, because we are, and as if none of us has a supernatural brother hanging around over their shoulder to right all the wrongs, because there's not. And though we've made a little bit of fun and maybe even crossed the line into mockery a moment or two, this is me reaching across the aisle to say, I beg you, to reach back and let's just be human together. We've got lots of problems in this world. And as far as I can tell, none of them get solved with supernatural thinking. So come along and let's do our best together without magic. And I hope there's another season. David, thanks for season 3 of SNS.
You're very welcome. Why would demons make deals with people? This is an interesting bit of the lore. You can make a deal with the demon, sell your soul, and you get goodies. You get wealth, sex, fame. Your dog lives longer, whatever the deal is. But what does the demon get out of it? I mean, if you think about it for just a moment, if you're the kind of person who would sell your soul to a demon for anything, they already have you. Sorry. So this is just one more piece of the illogic surrounding mainstream Christian demonology thinking. This is what they think when they don't say it aloud, or when they're only talking to each other in their clubhouses. This is the stuff they think. And at some point, you have to recognize the absurdity of it. And people like Sam Kinison and George Carlin were very influential in helping me see the power of polemic mockery. Because once you can laugh at something, it utterly loses its power over you. And so I hope that I have helped you, even involuntarily, to see the absurdity of some of this and laugh at it, because you're never going to be able to go back to the way it was before, I assure you. And before handing it over to Brian, I will just say a few last words. Matthew Taylor, gallstones. Give me suck, O thy phallus, thy eye, thy lust, thy eye, thy lust. Follow. Brian.
So I have to follow poor Matthew getting gallstones from across the pond from your mispronunciation of a devil's prayer. Fantastic. Yeah, no, I don't have much to add. I think all the closings covered, I think, the most important topics that we're talking about. The one finer point I'll put on it is hopefully what this shows is the hallmarks for what good skepticism is, right? Skepticism isn't believing things are false, believing the opposite of what you say. Skepticism is not assenting to believing something until you have a good reason for it, and then holding that belief in proportion to how good the reason you have for believing it is. We can hold beliefs of various strengths based on various amounts of evidence, kinds of evidence, strength of evidence, but we should apportion our beliefs to the evidence. And what happens with these supernatural claims is we're told on one hand that these things are in a supernatural realm that we don't understand and we can't access and we have no way of sensing. If that's true, then that's fine. Leave that stuff there. I'm not going to believe it's true, but you're telling me if I don't have access to it, I can't also confirm it's false. So my stance has to be, as a good skeptic, is to not accept it as true until it is demonstrated as such. And once you tell me there are mechanisms for demonstrating these things are real, now we have something to go on. And this is inevitably where we bump into the idea that deities and demons and Satan and Jesus don't want to be tested. They do not want to be put to the test by us mere humans. So again, if that's the case, if they will not be put to the test such that I'll have the evidence I need to believe in them, I'm going to withhold my belief. I won't believe in it. That's not me saying I've proven it's false, but if you're telling me it is true, and all of the Christian panelists very clearly raised their hand up and said, yes, Satan is real, then prove it. Show us the evidence. And if you tell me it's because it's written in an old book, that's not good evidence. If other people wrote down that they think they had access to Satan because of their influence in reading an old book, that's not good evidence. If Satan is real and does real things, if he's laying obstacles and deceiving people, and he's putting things in front of me that are changing my desires, that should be testable. And if it is not by design or because of non-existence, then I am in the right spot, which is not believing it's true. So I think, hopefully this just puts an exclamation point on the fact that what we're trying to espouse is good skepticism. Do not believe in things if you don't have a good reason to.
Thanks, everybody. And that's going to wrap it up for Skeptics and Seekers, quite possibly forever. But otherwise, see you next football season. Take care.